Well, good evening, everyone. It is difficult to talk after such a beautiful performance. Just a brief summary of the first part of this two-part talk about health and healing. Last time that some of us were together, we talked about health, a state of health as a condition of balance and harmony and integration between all components of human existence. And we describe them as a condition of unity. It is a state of unity in every sense of word. First of all, in a physical sense, has to be unity between different organs and components and chemical processes and electrical processes and all the different processes that are happening in the body. Also, there has to be unity between our thoughts, our emotional states, and our body functions. We said that when we reflect and think, we see that all human diseases and disorders are either somatopsychic, meaning they are primarily bodily problems with secondarily affecting our psychological state, or psychosomatic, meaning they are psychological states affecting secondarily our bodily functions. But they are all integrated with each other. This is a state of organic unity. And health, therefore, is a process of maintaining the organic unity of the organism. And we talked a little bit also about the psychological state. There has to be a unity, first of all, between the body and the mind, and the psychological and biological, physical processes that are happening. And also within our mind, there has to be unity between our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions, because in the absence of that inner unity, then we feel a state of anxiety and stress, which would negatively affect our health. And we had much more talk about that, and they are available on the website that you can somehow get it. Mr. Saberi would mention it to you, and if you want. But that wasn't sufficient in talking about health, because we human beings are not individuals without the benefit of relationships. We live in the context of relationships. And therefore, we have to understand how our relationships impact our state of health. And as a matter of fact, in recent years, there have been a number of interesting research done that clearly shows that our relationships have a profound impact on our state of health and well-being. We know, for example, people who are married usually, but not always, feel much healthier than those who are not married. So all of your single people, keep that in mind. And also we know now that people who have good relationship, they usually heal better. Their immune system is stronger. There is evidence that prayers, meaning relationship at the spiritual level, has an impact on recovery of people and healing of people. There is increasing evidence that scientific support for the importance of relationships in states of health and well-being. And of course, relationships are based on the fundamental human power and human quest and human need, which is love. We as human beings, we are all lovers. We all need to love, and we all need to be loved. And it is in the context of love that we come together and connect with other people, and we establish relationships. And when the relationships go beyond certain levels, become more intimate, we establish families, we establish small communities of people and larger communities and societies, and this has been the history of humanity. In other words, humanity, because of the forces of love and the need to create unity, has established ever greater circles of unity between people. And it is in the context of unity that people feel safe, people feel more secure, people feel less anxious, people feel more courageous, and these all are conditions that impact the health of the individuals as well as the group. So there is a very, very close relationship between health and the community. So therefore, it is important to understand the concept of community. As I mentioned, community has been naturally establishing and happening throughout history. And while the force of community, of coming together, of connecting with each other, has been happening in a natural way, nevertheless, and has been dependent upon the force of love, it also has been dependent upon a force of unity of thought and unity of understanding of certain fundamental issues, which we, if you want to put it in we see the world and we see ourselves in the world. Okay? And this prism, this glass that we put on, has at least 4 components. We all have a notion and a view of reality. What is reality? See? We all have a view of what is human nature. We all have a view about the purpose of life. And we all have a view about what is proper human relationships. These four things, view of reality, of human nature, of the purpose of life, and of human relationships, together, they create the necessary framework for establishing a community. So when we say a community of people, we mean group of people who have similar ideas about these four issues. And throughout history, therefore, have been different communities established throughout the globe. And these communities have been separate from each other. And because humanity has been growing and evolving and maturing, meaning that it has been in the earlier stages of its development before. So what has happened is that these communities of people, on the one hand, have provided support and comfort and necessary healing processes for their members, and on the other hand, been at war and fight with other communities. This is a history of humanity that been throughout history that has been happening. And if we reflect on it, we will see that the forces that have created communities of people, some of the very fundamental forces, have been those forces that have impacted people's worldview. And of course, religions are the forefront of that. Religions throughout history have impacted the worldview of people. The religions describe the nature of reality, they describe the purpose of life, they describe the nature of human reality, they describe the laws of human relationships. So, because of that, religions have been the greatest force in human history to create communities of people. And to the extent that people have been able to have a united worldview, united understanding of the teachings of a given religion, to that extent they have been able to establish safe and progressive and healthy and happy communities. Unfortunately, the history proves that we haven't been very good at it. And we really have messed up the whole process of both life and religion throughout history. But nevertheless, it is important to remember that communities are influenced by ideas. And among the most powerful ideas are religious ideas on the one hand, and a number of other ideologies that have come to govern human societies, especially during the last 2 centuries. Communism has been one of them. Capitalism has been another one. The modern humanitarian concepts of humanity, not based on religion, but based on certain ethical principles that, of course, come from religions, but nevertheless, they have separated themselves from them. This has happened. We all are familiar with it. Now, as humanity has evolved, there has been, on the one hand, coming together of communities, establishing communities, and on the other hand, being a major disruption in the life of many communities. For example, colonialism totally destroyed the established communities in Africa and in many other parts of the world. In North America, in the whole Americas, they did that. So there has been enormous disruption of community building in human history. And it is in this context that understanding the Baha'i community becomes very important. As I mentioned, religion always has been fundamental source of community building. And I want to read a statement from Baha'u'llah about how he sees what happened when in 1963 a new revelation came to the world of humanity, namely the Baha'i faith. From spiritual perspective, something dramatic happened. Baha'u'llah says, this is the day whereon naught can be seen except the splendors of the light that shineth from the face of thy Lord, the gracious, the most bountiful. So, I will continue, but here what Baha'u'llah is stating is that when a new manifestation of God comes to this world, a new religion, a spiritual revelation starts. A new understanding comes, a new light comes to the world, a new understanding comes to the world. And that new understanding influences everything. It is like light, you see. When you have the light coming into darkness, all things that are subject to that light are going to become manifest. They cannot escape from it. They would be affected by light. If this room was dark, okay, and you suddenly bring the light into this room, everything will be seen. Whether you want it or not, you will be seen because this is the light. This is the impact of light. So when a new revelation comes to this world, that revelation of God impacts everybody, whether we want it or we don't want it, whether we respond to it or we don't respond to it. Okay. So in 1863, Baha'u'llah says, a new light has come into the world. And what is the outcome of that new light? He said, we have caused the revelation. We have caused every soul to expire. In other words, a new light that comes, all that was in the past disappears. Now a new life is starting. So we die and we come to life. Okay. He says, verily, we have caused every soul to expire by virtue of our irresistible and all-subduing sovereignty of God. We have then called into being a new creation as a token of our grace unto men. Now, this concept is repeated in the writings of the Baha'i faith. And the concept is that with the advent of new revelation of God into humanity, everything that has been happening until then, and everything that has been connecting people together until then, everything is going to change. The old relationships no longer are going to work. And a new relationship has to be established. So look what has happened in the world of humanity since middle of 19th century. Everything 18th century, everything has happened. Everything has changed. Human societies have changed. Relationships among people have changed. Relationships between men and women have changed. You see, there was a good old time that men were sovereign. You see, it changed. Now, no longer. We are sovereign, okay? We have to be equal, okay? The whole relationship between men and women, between races, between religions, between nations, between groups, everything has been in a state of change and flux. And humanity is totally confused. Doesn't know what to do. It is searching for a new community. It's searching to establish a new relationship. It needs relationships in order to stay healthy, in order to have a healthy world. But we can't. We don't know what to do, because the only way that you can reestablish a relationship when a new revelation is come is to become aware of that new light, that new way of relationships, that new mindset, that new worldview. So if we want to create a worldwide, new, healthy community, we have to begin to develop a new ways of thinking and a new ways of relating. And those are the fundamental characteristics of the revelation of Baha'u'llah. So I want to very briefly discuss those aspects of this new community that Baha'u'llah calls upon us to establish. And Baha'u'llah calls upon us to establish a community which is, first of all, worldwide, is all-encompassing. Everyone is in it. Okay? It is based on a fundamental consciousness. And that is the consciousness of the oneness of humanity. You see, oneness of humanity is a fact. Humanity always has been one. From a biological sense, from every sense, humanity always has been one. What has been absent has been our consciousness that we are one. Okay? It's our consciousness, our worldview has been absent. We have had a worldview of dichotomous nature, meaning us and them. Okay? But Baha'u'llah said we have to create a community, a worldwide community based on the consciousness of the oneness of humanity. And that we have to realize that this oneness of humanity is expressed in diversity. In other words, we are one and we are diverse. We are diverse in the expression of our oneness. And that is the concept of unity in diversity that you are all familiar with. Okay. So here you have a community of people that have to be conscious of oneness of humanity, have to function according to principles of unity in diversity, and they have to be all encompassing, meaning they have to take into consideration all aspects of human existence. That means that we have to be one with ourselves, one with each other, one with nature, with all forms of life, with all dynamics of existence, with powers that are greater than us, with the divine, We have to create that state of harmony and unity and oneness at all levels. Okay. And not only that realization of oneness, but we have to change also our perspective about who we are. You see, the ideas have power. And of all ideas, the most consequential is the idea that we have about human nature, about who we are. Throughout history, human nature has been understood in a negative way. For example, in many societies, human nature has been viewed as being wicked, being sinful, being selfish, being animal, being aggressive, being greedy. You name it. You will see both in the modern materialistic science and in different religions of the world. When you go and look at them, you see that all of them talk about human nature in a negative sense. And when human beings have a negative perspective about themselves, they develop profound psychological and social disorders. And these psychological social disorders then have impact on all aspects of their health. So one of the fundamental changes that has to happen is not only we become aware of the fundamental oneness of humanity, we also have to become aware that human beings in their essence are noble beings. We are noble individuals. We have been created noble. And the task that we have is to bring that nobility to the forefront. We have to constantly evolve and develop. Modern materialistic science emphasizes that we are animals. We are like animals, everything like animals, and it is a downward view of human nature. The Baha'u'llah says that human beings are fundamentally noble, creative beings. And it is that nobility that has to become the focus of our attention, of how can we live a life that demonstrates that nobility. So that's another dimension of this. And in order to do that, our ways of thinking has to be changed, not only about ourselves, but about each other. It's not only that we are noble, all humanity is noble. And that's a difficult thing to accept. Because we look around and say, my God, what about so and so? What you do about the so and so? And we create this dichotomous perspective, us and them. And as soon as we do that, then we fall into a trap. See? So this is a challenge. This is the fundamental challenge of being able to create a community of people who are aware of the fundamental oneness of humanity, who live together according to the principles of unity in diversity, and whose objective is to bring forth the noble qualities of human beings, of all human beings. And to do that in the condition, in the circumstances of harmony, of unity, of peace, of collaboration, and kindness, and love. That's the objective. This, if you put all of these characteristics together, then you are talking about a special process. And that special process is related to the kind of relationships that we establish. Relationships which I said are based on issue of love, also have to be based on issue of understanding. In other words, we cannot love another human being fully and completely unless we try to understand that other person. You cannot love that which you do not know. Okay. And and the process of knowing the other human beings has to take place in the context of this worldview that we are all one and we are all noble. And therefore what you want to know about the other human being is not their faults. It's their positive qualities. It is what makes them noble, what makes them beautiful, not negative things that are there. Okay. And that process demands a lot from us as individuals because it calls upon us as individuals to see ourselves in the positive term. To see ourselves as noble beings, to be able to focus on the positive qualities of ourselves. And this is difficult, very, very difficult thing to do. That in one statement Baha'u'llah makes, which is very, very challenging. I have been for many years trying to understand what can cause human beings to relate with each other in a state of harmony and love, free from conflict and dissension and violence. And one of his statements, Baha'u'llah says that there is a secret about the way that we can create harmony and unity and get rid of conflict among people. And the secret is our willingness to accept that all is from God. Meaning that when we think about another human being, we have to remember that God has created him or her. And therefore, if it is good for God, it should be good for us. Okay, all comes from God. And another issue is that many times things happen contrary to our wishes, that we don't understand the reason for it. And then later on, we become aware of the wisdom of that process and so on. All of this I'm trying to say in a very inadequate way is that we in the Baha'i community, we are called upon to create a new type of relationship. A relationship that is based on fundamental understanding that we are all one, that we are all unique, therefore we are diverse, that we are connected with each other through our collective love for each other, for humanity, through the revelation. And this is called the covenant of the Baha'i faith. The force of covenant is that force that brings the Baha'i community together. Now, if you look at the structure of the Baha'i community, you will see that Baha'u'llah is suggesting that we restructure the way that the world functions. He has changed the calendar, he has changed the, number of days in a month, he has changed the way every day you live, the structure of living, daily living. None of these still is happening in the Baha'i community. He has said that we have to come together every 19 days in a special spiritual feast and social feast. We have to create conditions of harmony and unity in such a way that everyone takes care of everyone. None of these are yet happening within the Baha'i community because we are small, we are at the beginnings of formation of these processes, and we still are not understanding what does it mean to create a worldwide community. So, but nevertheless, the challenge before us is to create a new community, because unless we create a new community based on the fundamental forces of love, unity, and peace, our health, individually and collectively, is going to profoundly suffer. And this is what's happening in the world today. Wherever there is no unity, you have disease, you have poverty, you have distraction. Look what is happening everywhere in the world. In Africa, in Middle East, in India. Just reflect what is happening in the world. You see everywhere that you look, you will see the communities of people are collapsing. Okay? And people trying to create new relationships, and they don't know how to do that. And it is in this condition that we have to become aware of what are the dynamics of a new community. You see, worldwide community of people. Now let me share with you some other thoughts. I want to say a few words also about characteristics of a community life and dynamics of a community life. And that in the community life, at least 3 processes are happening. The first process is the process of what we call relationship establishment, which we discussed briefly. Then, when the relationships are established, then we have to begin to develop an understanding of each other. And this understanding is going to require the process of transformation, of moving from self to the other and creating ever greater circles of unity and harmony. And when we do that, a condition of spiritual health begins to emerge. How do we describe spiritual health? Abdu'l-Baha says that the attainment of any object is conditional upon knowledge, volition, and action. Meaning that in order to us to create a new kind of relationship, self-knowledge, understanding ourselves, understanding each other, and understanding the process of transformation, of moving from one level of behavior to the other is essential. Now, I'm not being very coherent here because I feel that one of the problems that we have is that in our world we are trying to understand everything in the context of our ordinary experiences. We become preoccupied with what is happening in our daily life. And we don't develop the vision of what is it that we want to create. And when we don't have that vision, when we cannot imagine a new world, a new type of relationships, a new community of people, a new ways of getting together, a new way of establishing marriage, family relationships. When we cannot imagine those things, then we wouldn't be able to create it. So here we are in everyday life, struggling every day, struggling with all kind of problems and difficulties that we have. And not knowing what to do from one moment to the next. But at the same time, we realize that unless we make some fundamental change in our ways of functioning, we are not going to evolve and to create the kind of world that we want to create. When we are stuck in that situation, the most fundamental issue is to be able to envision a new society, a new community, a new way of relationship, a new way of looking at things. And this is very difficult because you have to free yourself from the everyday challenges, okay? From mundane things. And I think the time that envisioning comes, the most possible is in the midst of prayers and after prayers. We, as a Baha'is, we pray. And we have to pray every day, and we have to read from the writings of the faith every day. And the purpose of all of these, at least one purpose of it, is that in the midst of this, we can separate ourselves in the midst of our prayers and meditation, separate ourselves from the mundane issues and begin to envision a community of people that would be different from what it is. And when we do that envisioning, when we imagine what would be a healthy community, a united community, a harmonious community, a happy community, a helping community, a worldwide community. When we begin to imagine the different aspects of it, then we can create it. And I think this has been one of the greatest things that has been missing in the midst of our other activities. So, to summarize, health is a state of organic unity. At the individual level, this organic unity refers to unity between our body and soul, which are functioning a state of unity. As soon as unity between body and soul is severed, you're dead. So a living being is a being in which the body and soul are united with each other. And in this state of unity, we have to take care of both our body and our soul. And we have to focus on different functions of the body on the one hand, and the three powers of human soul on the other hand. The three powers to be power to know, power to love, and power to choose. Okay? And we have to bring them all in harmony with each other. And as we do that, we create a state of inner comfort, inner much lesser degree of distress. And when we are able to take away stress from ourselves, we increase our capacity to have conditions of health and fighting the conditions of disease. So that's at individual level. But because we are human beings in the context of relationships, then we really cannot do any of these things without the help of others. We need other people. We need to establish relationships. And it is here that we need to create circles of unity, ever expanded circles of unity, beginning from unity, inner unity, interpersonal unity in our family, in our community, in our society, and going broader and broader. At any level, we can function at any time at any of those levels. And that's why the more broad is our way of thinking, the more universal we think, the less self-centered we are, the healthier we become. People think that you are healthier if you focus on yourself, while really you are healthier if you focus on everyone. Because by doing that, you increase your circle of love, put it in a simple way. So these are some thoughts about issues of community health and individual health, and let's have a little bit of discussion.
But I understand what you're saying about having the vision division is necessary. And that's what helps us walk through difficult challenges, even in the community. How do we balance out the vision with the now, with the reality? I mean, there are real realities and challenges. So we can't ignore some of them.
No.
Because even in the world in general, it would be dangerous. So I'm trying to think, what's the proper attitude for that balance? I don't know. I'm asking. Could you give us?
Well, the question is how we bring together, create a balance between the reality that we experience and the vision that we have of a much better world. And I think, first of all, the vision has to be a realistic vision. Cannot be just a wishful vision. It has to be based on reality of what is possible that we can create, okay? I give you an example, personal example, okay? I have been working now for many, many, many years in a war-torn country, okay? And when we went first there, and it was amazing because you walk in the streets and you see bullet holes everywhere, and you see makeshift burial places in front of homes and gardens and parks and so forth. People have been killed and have been buried there and so forth. You see enormous degree of suffering. You see enormous degree of pain. Okay. And you have only two choices here, or few choices that you have. One is to be preoccupied with what am I going to do for this person and that person, which is important. Okay. But also you have to have a vision of how you can help this collective of people to create a different kind of society. A peaceful society. Okay. Here is the victim of war that you have to deal with. But this victim of the war really wouldn't be able to heal unless you give him hope for a better life. And that's exactly what happened when we began to work with thousands and thousands and thousands of children and their parents and their teachers and so forth. What they told us after 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, what helped them the most was that we gave them a realistic, hopeful vision of how to create a better society, a peaceful society. They said that was what made them motivated to work on their suffering, on their pains, on their agonies that they had, and go the path of trying to understand their enemies, trying to understand each other, trying to forgive each other, to move to the next stage, and then working together. And this we saw in front of our eyes happening, okay, which was the most exciting process. And what was really fundamental was to give them hope. Because when people don't have hope, they would not recover. Okay? Whether it's a physical illness or social illness or psychological illness, you need hope. And the hope has to be based on reality, on real things that can be achieved, but, is far from you, but you move towards it. You see? So that's why the combination of having a vision and dealing with the reality becomes so fundamentally necessary. Does that answer your question?
I think what is important is the capacity of societies and individuals. Nothing positive and good happens if the capacity of something does not increase. Therefore, we know, as you mentioned, these things has happened because of a new creation. The light has been shone. Therefore, the darkness is gone, we see everything, and chaos stops. Now, to increase our capacity, I think, is we go back to the source of this new creation by knowing what are the realities that has been newly created. And based on that, we increase our capacity. Therefore, we can bear the same time that we can vision better, higher, gradually, little by little, the process. Therefore, for example, if I don't know what are the changes, what are the realities which have been changed, how can I vision, as you mentioned? Therefore, and who has changed this reality?
Mm-hmm.
The source that has changed it has the answer.
Yes, sir.
So I think if I go and read more the writings and, research and these things, I will increase my capacity. Therefore, I can bear the problem. I get stronger. Therefore, I can handle things better. At the same time, I gradually increase my capacity and then know how to create a better vision for myself.
Yes, the whole issue of development of our capacities is both an individual endeavor and a collective endeavor. In other words, we individually constantly have to try to expand and increase our capacities. And one of the best way to do it is to help others to develop their capacities. Because it is in this reciprocal process that we discover new things about ourselves. It is like as parents trying to raise your children, or now me as a grandparent trying to help my grandchildren. Every day when I try to help them to develop capacities, they help me to develop my capacities. Because you discover new things. This is one dimension. And the other dimension that you mentioned, which is fundamental, is that we usually have a tendency to focus on some of our capacities and not all of our capacities. We as human beings have a physical capacities, psychological capacities, emotional, mental, ethical and moral and spiritual capacities. And we have to always focus on all of them. When we focus only on one or the other, our development becomes not wholesome. You see, that's the problem of modern society. That, for example, it focuses first of all fundamentally on physical development. Okay. Secondarily, to some extent, it focuses on psychological development, emotions and thoughts. It focuses very little really on moral development. And it is totally confused about the spiritual development. This is the world that we live in. right now. And therefore we have this disfigured humanity. Okay? Because we have developed in certain areas and we have atrophied in other areas. So humanity has become disfigured. The body of humanity is disfigured. Okay. What we have to create is this coordinated, wholesome, complete development. It is then that we are not only fully healthy, but also beautiful. The world right now is ugly. Okay. It is unhealthy and is ugly. Okay. And, we have to create the age of health and beauty. And that requires, as you mentioned, the wholesome, complete development. So, for example, for physical health, we go to physical sciences. Emotional health, we go to study the emotional and psychological sciences. Spiritual health, people don't know where to go, and they have to go to the revelation. But majority of people don't know how to do that, and they're not even aware of it. And Baha'is, God bless them, are very quiet, keeping it to themselves. So, so here you are, this, nobody knows about it, Yeah. Yes.
I'm sorry, but I a little bit disagree with that because Baha'is, I work somewhere. When you express yourself in the environment, it is whether it's so new or such a language that you get drawbacks or I don't know the exact word that you can say, but then that quiets the person down because you have to be able to function in that environment that you're dealing with.
Yes, the issue is that sometimes when we express the Baha'i principles to people, the spiritual teachings, because it's new, they balk and they disagree with it and they become quiet. Yeah, that means that we have to learn to do it differently. That's what it means. It means that we haven't yet learned how to convey the message, and so that's what happens. Yes, is everything has an art comes into this process, and it's not an easy process. But yeah, I fully agree. Because we are living in a world that is very, very anti-spiritual. You see, but nevertheless, the whole world is seeking spirituality. The whole world is hungry for it. Okay, only they don't know how to do it, and we have to begin to develop a way of communicating about it and expressing it and so forth. That's our challenge.
I think a source of distress or ill health that I think maybe most of us feel, maybe more younger people feel it than us who are older, is that as you described the community and the expanding circles of the community, and as you get younger friends, maybe the local community here, out into the province and into the nation, and then onto the world arena, then there are profound issues such as climate change and the kind of injustices which are much more apparent now than I think over 30 years, that seem to be accelerating at a pace that makes it very difficult to say, well, what we need to do is change the hearts of
men one at a time, to individual contacts, while the distress that we feel as world citizens is profound.
That's right. This is a very important issue, that the crisis that we are facing right now are of such fundamental nature and some as such excessive and dangerous level that we just cannot focus on having every individual changing and through the change of the one individual at a time to change the conditions of the world, which is true. You see, this is again related to the whole issue of worldview. Worldview meaning the way we understand our world and our place in the world and the realities that we are faced with it. And right now, the worldviews that are prevalent in the world are very problematic. They are conflict-based worldview. They are based on otherness and conflict and greed and so forth. Now, there are at any given time two processes at work with respect to worldviews. Is that, or put it differently, worldviews would change under two circumstances. Okay? And I feel that the conditions of the world would not change unless our worldview changes. And worldviews change under two circumstances. One is through calamities, and the other one is through insight. And unfortunately, throughout history until now, the force that has pushed people to change their worldviews has been through calamities. Okay? This has been throughout history. I give you an example. Okay? Europe. When 100 years ago, Abdul Baha, the unique figure in the Baha'i faith this center of the Baha'i covenant, came to North America. Okay? Exactly 100 years ago. He traveled across North America and he told everyone that we need peace. We need to create peace. We need to get rid of the prejudices that we have and all of those things. And he said that if we don't, the calamities would come. He said it. Okay? 4 years later, or sooner, the war started. The First World War. He had said the war is going to come. Right? So that was a major calamity. People responded to that major calamity of First World War, trying to create the League of Nations. Abdul Baha wrote to them and said, this is not sufficient. You have to do more. If you don't do more, more calamity would come. But ultimately, you have to become united. The only choice that you have is to become united. You don't have any other choice. Okay. That was the insight. Nobody listened. Okay. That was also the informing them that was going to happen. So we had the Second World War. And then after the Second World War, the European countries who have brought 2 world wars to humanity, okay, they began to create European Union. But it took 2 world wars and killing of millions and millions of people that people were willing to change to a certain degree their worldview from conflict and competition with each other to harmony and unity with each other. They are still struggling with it, okay? But at least they have moved that way. So you see how worldview changes. Worldview changes in response to calamity. It could change through a response to insight. But humanity's tendency is to ignore insight until the problem comes. So yes, we are now facing fundamental crisis of environment, of also economic problems that are coming to our world, and I think also some diseases that are going to become ever more frequent and so forth. And again, humanity is not responding. Scientists bring all ideas and this and that. Nevertheless, we are going to go through crisis, and I think we are going to go through major crisis. But while that is happening, it is essential that those who have certain degree of understanding of the process, certain notion of a future humanity, certain notion of a new civilization, of a civilization of peace, that they begin to work on that. Because out of the gloom of that calamity has to come the acceptance of a new model, a new way of life. And if you don't have a model to show, if you don't have anything to show, then it would be a total gloom. But if you have a model, then the severely damaged humanity would see glimpses of hope. But I agree with you. We are heading towards very major crisis. And I don't think we are going to avert those crises. I don't see the awakening of humanity to the realities of what is happening to us. Okay? But nevertheless, we cannot give up the hope and the effort to create a model community. Because if you don't do that, we don't have anything. And that's why the worldwide Baha'i community, as an example, as a prototype of a healing community, becomes essential. You see, that's why we have to work on it. And I know it is very difficult. It is insignificant in the eyes of the world. We are small. We are unimportant right now. But nevertheless, we are creating that prototype. Does that make sense? Yeah. But the crisis is there. And I know that. And our children are going to suffer. We are going to suffer. It's going to be very, very difficult. But you have to go with it. Okay, dear friends. Thank you very much. We are going to have music.
Yeah. Arma?
Okay, hello everyone. Today we have a very special guest performer before I play. His name is Shima, and he'll play a Beethoven Sonata. That was awesome. I'll be playing next. I call it my new Ferrari. That's what it feels like when I'm playing. It just feels like I'm driving a Ferrari. It's by a composer called Schumann, and I think he was actually going crazy when he was writing this. He actually did go crazy, but he was starting to go crazy. So I hope you guys enjoy the madness.
Friends, those who have who would like to have a direct invitation and they have not written so far the name and emails and would like to have that, there is a list here. With pleasure, I will put it in the list. So please, forward. خیلی ممنون.
خواهش میکنم.